Thank you, everyone. We'll be starting in just a moment. We're giving people a few minutes to keep on coming in, so just hold tight for about a minute or so.
All right. Good evening or good morning to everybody. My name is Cristiano Gersi. I work as CTO for Liquidtext, and I want to welcome all of you to this new session of our exciting series of webinars. So today, we will learn how to use at best Liquidtext to study and comprehend more our documents. And specifically, we are going to focus on the import and export and integration features of Liquidtext. So basically, the input-output from and towards the Liquidtext world. For this purpose, I'd like to introduce you Craig Tashman, our founder and CEO, that will lead the session. The session will be split in two parts, a presentation of something around 30 minutes, followed by an active Q&A session where Craig will answer all of your questions, hopefully. So let's jump straight into the fun. Craig, you're on.
Thank you so much, Cristiano, and thank you all so much for coming. So I'm coming to you live from just north of New York City. And as Cristiano said, what we're going to be talking about today are a couple things. First, we're going to do just about 1 or 2 minutes of quick background on Liquidtext, just for any folks here who are new and don't quite know what we're about yet. Then we're going to go on and spend about half the time talking about, as Cristiano said, our input and output, integrations, content import and export, and then take about half the time and answer any questions that you guys have, as well as any feature requests, ideas, just digging deep on the whole integrations, import and export. Okay, so to get started then, like I said, let me give you guys a little bit of quick background on who we are. So the problem that Liquidtext is about is trying to understand, how do computers help us gather, organize, annotate, and kind of understand the content that we're working with? Well, in a lot of ways, computers don't. It turns out about 80% of knowledge workers would rather do their serious analytical reading on paper rather than computers. That's just crazy when you think about it. It means in a lot of ways, the computing technology we've been creating has made this one of the foundational aspects of human thought worse. Now, why is this? Well, a big part of the problem is that in large part, the way we have approached reading on computers has been to try to replicate the experience of paper. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work. You end up inheriting the limitations of paper without really inheriting the benefits of it. With Liquidtext, we approached it differently. We said, instead of starting with paper, let's start with the human mind. Let's study how people think and try to build something based on that. And so we did 4 years of research at Georgia Tech, 2 peer-reviewed papers, and my doctoral dissertation, trying to study and solve this problem. And so the result is something that we hope will help you find information faster, take better notes, and discover connections that you would otherwise miss. Now, the quick background on the actual product: we initially launched it in 2015. It's available on PC, Mac, and iPad. We've been fortunate to win some wonderful awards, including Apple's Most Innovative App of the Year. Law 360 even called us world-changing. But with the moving beyond the accolades, now let's get to the fun part. Liquidtext input and output. So before I get into the demo, just one starting point. The file formats we support are PDF, DocX, as used in Microsoft Word, PPTX is used in PowerPoint, web pages, JPEGs, and photos. Some folks have asked about supporting ebooks, supporting EPUB. we've thought about it. We're open to it. If that's something that would be interesting for you guys, by all means, please let us know. So next, let's go on to the demo. So in case any of you don't know, this is the Liquidtext home screen. This is where we manage our files. And you'll notice over on the left, we have different places where we can import a document from. So the basic model Liquidtext uses is you import documents into the application and it creates a project around that document. And now you can annotate it, take out notes, pull in multiple documents into the same project and so on. But it all starts by importing a document. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the first place where we might import a document is by opening a file. And this is there's some differences depending on whether you're on the iPad, Mac, or PC. I happen to be using my iPad for this demo, but the concepts are pretty much the same across the platforms. So we'll start by tapping Open File. And of course, what happens is, since it's an iPad, it brings up a standard Apple file browser window. Now, let's suppose I want to create a couple of projects at once based on a couple of different starting files. So what I can do here is tap Select. And maybe in this case, I'll select one document about a honeybee illness and one document about patent law. Those two seem like they go together well, don't they? I'll select Open. And voila. Now what the app has done is it's imported both files as two independent projects. Okay, so how else might we create a new project? Well, of course, we have these other options of web page, open picture. Let me just talk about these briefly. We can go into open web page, for example. And of course, the app brings up a little pop-up web browser. We can navigate it, find the web page we want, and tap import. But another cool way that we can do this, arguably even cooler, is we can go over to Safari. And hold on, let me go back to Wikipedia. Okay, we can go back to Safari, tap Send, and tap Liquidtext. And it goes right back to Liquidtext and it says, what do we want to do with this? Do I want to import it into an existing project or a new project? Well, let's say we want to import it into a new project. And it brings up the Wikipedia page. I tap Import. And voila, look at that. It created a new project and imported this web page as the first document. Okay, great. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the different import options. Now you'll notice again, there's open picture and reference managers on the side. Just briefly, if you tap open picture, it gives you can pull in pictures off of your iPad or your other device. And on the iPad, there's even an option to import pictures by just using the camera and taking pictures of documents around you, and the app will flatten the picture and straighten it and so on. And of course, there's reference managers, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in a few minutes. But before that, let's start by opening one of our existing projects. We'll open Bee Afflicting Disease. Now, we're in the Liquidtext editor, of course, and for anyone who's new to it, over on the left, we have our documents list. And after that, we have the document itself. And after that, we have our workspace. Our workspace is like our note-taking area where you can gather notes from all the different documents that you're working with, organize them, annotate them, connect them, and so on. But again, the focus of this presentation is really just on the integrations, importing and exporting. Okay, so now that we've opened this project, one of the most powerful things about Liquidtext is bringing many different documents into the same project file, right? So for example, if we're studying a honeybee illness, we might have a document about the illness. We might have some documentation of evidence from honeybee workers. We might have some information about honeybee biology, all together in one project where we can bring the notes together, connect them, and so on. So how do we do that? How do we bring a second document in? Well, we go over here on the left, we tap Add Document. And now you see I have all my options. I can import from another Liquidtext project. I can import from a file. I can import a web page like before, an image, or I can import from the reference managers. So to start with, let's talk about the reference managers. So I'm going to tap reference managers here. And right now we have two integrations, Zotero and Mendeley. Let's start with Zotero. Beautiful. And what happens is it brings up our custom Liquidtext Zotero integration. We're actually directly talking to the Zotero servers. We're using their APIs, the whole thing. It's really cool. And so here, as you tap each one of these different documents in my Zotero, you'll notice it gives you a little preview on the side with the metadata, the abstract, and so on. So let's select two of these and let's import both. Beautiful. Okay, so you'll notice that as I tap some of these files I just imported from the reference manager, over on the top left, it says insightful and keep right under the afflicting disease. What is that? Those are tags. So one of the things we've added to Liquidtext recently is the ability to tag not only excerpts and comments and things like that in text, but you can tag a document as a whole. And we also have a lot of other metadata too. If I tap the word be afflicting disease or the little tags here, look what happens. It brings up a metadata pop-up that shows me all of the metadata that it brought in from the reference manager, in this case, Zotero. So you see the tags, the authors, the abstract, and of course, all this is editable too. And we have that here as well. Now I can add tags to other documents also, but I'll talk a little bit more about that just a little bit later. Okay, so how else might I bring new documents into Liquidtext? Well, one that people talk about a lot is, of course, drag and drop. And so, of course, we support this on every different Liquidtext platform. And so let me demo it for you here. So let's bring up the Files app, and we'll just let it float around here. And let's say I want to bring in a hive inspection sheet and common honeybee disorders. So I'm dragging two of these guys right over here. The app does the import, and voila, there we are. We just brought them in. So we try to be really flexible in drag and drop. You can, of course, drag and drop documents right into the document pane to add them. You can also, of course, drag and drop files right into the main home screen. Now, one thing that some people ask about is, what if I want to bring in an entire folder at once? Well, on the iPad, unfortunately, Apple changed some things recently, and somewhat recently, and they made it apparently impossible for us to support dragging and dropping an entire folder into a Liquidtext project. However, on Windows, we do not have that limitation. So on Windows, you have a lot more flexibility, and you should be able to drag and drop an entire folder into the app. But again, of course, you can, even on the iPad, you can drag and drop a group of files at once, and that should be true on the Mac as well. Okay. So now that we've dragged and dropped things in, how else might we bring content in? Well, of course, there's the web browser, like we talked about before. But there's a cool way of using the web browser that I'd like to show you. We can take Safari and have the nice Safari floating window again. And so let's search for Wikipedia. We'll learn about bees here. Now, the first thing I want to show you is that you might not need an entire web page, right? You might say, I just need one picture from this web page, or I just need one little bit of text from this web page. Well, what you can do is you can just drag the picture right into the Liquidtext workspace, right from the web browser. Or, for example, we'll select some text here. Drag this and drop it in as well. Just like that. Look at that. So now just the little bits of content that I need, I can bring straight in from the web browser. So I can actually have them working side by side. Now, let's say, let's browse something else. Let's say I want to find the source of this quote from the web browser. Well, I can just tap the little arrow and is it having a bad day? There we are. I don't know why it took so long. In any event, as you see, I tap the arrow and it brings us right back to that article on bees. Usually it should do that instantly. For some reason, it waited a second or two, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's great. But now let's suppose I want to bring in the entire article on bees, not just these little pieces. Well, for that, I can just, of course, tap share, tap Liquidtext again, and I can add to the current file. Import it, and here we are. We have the article on bees. So it makes it really easy to just have your web browser and Liquidtext kind of going next to each other and just pulling in content right as you need it. Okay, excellent. So now let's talk about another approach to importing. What if you have a scanned document, or even just you haven't even scanned it yet, you just need to scan it? Well, we can tap add document. And like I mentioned a little bit before, we can tap on image files. So as I briefly mentioned before, we have two options here. The first is to insert a picture that you already have on your device. And the second is to actually just use the camera to take pictures of the pages in a document you have sitting on your desk. In this case, let me show you an example by doing insert picture. So I'll tap insert picture from file browser, and we'll go to images here, and we'll select pick one. And see, it adds it into our little preview where we can reorder the pages. I'll insert a second one, and now I'll do select 3, 4, and 5. Give it a second to download the pictures. Oh, that is a little strange. Files seems to be having some problems today. Maybe iOS is having a bad afternoon. Let's try this again. That is my apologies, everyone. For some reason, Mac or iOS is having a bad day, and it's not listing my files now. Okay, well. It's not even showing the cancel button. Well, give me a moment here. Let me just restart the app here, and we'll go right back to Be Afflicting Disease, and we'll see if maybe iOS is feeling like it's in a little bit of a better mood now. Okay, insert pictures from file browser. No, it's not. All right, I guess I need to reboot my iPad, but we are not going to do that during this video demo. Instead, I'll just walk you through how it would have worked. Normally, if I went to image files and I went to insert picture, I would select the pictures in question and tap import, and it would construct the entire image-based document for me. After that, once I imported it, it would then mention that it could OCR it, and we'll talk a little bit more about OCR in just a minute. Okay, so the next one is importing across project. So if I tap Add Document and I tap Liquidtext Project, this gives me an opportunity to import a document that's actually in a different Liquidtext project already. Maybe I've annotated it, read it, put a bunch of discussed it, added a bunch of highlights to it, and I want to import it into this document as well. And let's say, for example, this article on beef. Well, we can take that guy, import it, and there we are. And now you notice not only did it bring in this article about beef, it included all the highlights and all the other annotations that I had made in the previous project. So this makes it really easy to share a common knowledge base among your different projects. Okay, excellent. So now let's talk a little bit about OCR. So unfortunately, the scanned document I wanted to bring in clearly is not something that that Apple is in the mood of processing right now. So let's just kind of mock it up a little bit. So let's go to back to our B article here. Let's suppose that this was a scanned document. I could tap Configure Document and go to OCR Text Detection. Oops, pardon me. Since we restarted, I need to reactivate here. Okay, lovely. Configure Document, OCR Text Detection. Excellent. And what I could do is I could turn on Instant OCR for text selection. What that is if you have imported a scanned document but haven't OCR'd it yet, Liquidtext on the iPad and the Mac, unfortunately, this is not available on the PC right now, but on the iPad and the Mac, it will in real time attempt to OCR your current page. And so this means you can pull out text selections and things like that. But if you want to go a step beyond that, for example, and be able to search the document, and then you would need to tap Full Document OCR, and we could begin OCR on the document. That, of course, takes a little bit longer, quite a bit longer, because it's OCRing the whole thing, but then it lets you search against it, and it also gives you usually higher accuracy as well. Okay, excellent. So the next point I'll mention, of course, is that we can edit the metadata on these documents. So like I mentioned, you can tap up here, see the metadata in some of the documents that we brought in before. But of course, we can also edit the metadata on new documents. So for example, I tap B Wikipedia, I go to tags, and maybe this is insightful. So I tap insightful. And now you see it adds the little insightful tag. Well, you say, that's great. What can I do with that? Well, of course, you can see it when you go to the document, but more usefully, if you go down to the little filter documents text box here, I can tap in, let's say, or type in insightful and see what it does. It filters away all the documents except those that have the insightful tag. This is particularly useful if you happen to be using Liquidtext with, let's say, several hundred or even several thousand documents in the same project. This makes it really easy to narrow down and find the ones that you're interested in. This filtering box not only searches the tags, but it searches all the metadata of your current document. Okay. Another thing I'll mention also is also for organizing your document list here, we have a nice tool for letting you group these into folders. So for example, if I wanted to put this into a folder, I can tap and hold on my iPad or on my PC or Mac. I could right click or control click, and I can tap add to folder. And let's say we'll just call it new folder, and it adds my document in. And let's go add a couple more in here. And now I can collapse the folder or expand the folder. So it makes it much easier to start grouping my documents for a large complex project. Okay, terrific. So now let's talk about exporting content, getting it back out of Liquidtext. Well, the first and in many cases, easiest way to get content out of Liquidtext is what we call auto send or auto export. So let me walk you through an example. Let's say we have, let's find a good one here. Okay, we have this document that we pulled in from Zotero earlier. Well, let's suppose I go and I highlight this line and I highlight this line, and now I'd like to send this back to Zotero. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, for many people, they use the reference manager, such as Zotero or Mendeley, as kind of their source of truth repository for their PDFs. And so they may bring into Liquidtext to annotate, highlight, create connections, synthesize across documents, but they still want those annotations to ultimately also be back in the reference manager. We make that really easy. If you've imported this document from your reference manager and then you make changes to it, when you go tap to close, it'll ask you, would you like to send these annotations back to the source? And in this case, that'll be back to your reference manager. So in this case, we won't send. Okay, we'll go back in. And so this is true not only for your reference manager, but this works for any source that you import a document from that Liquidtext is able to access again, right? So if you use the Apple file picker and you import from Dropbox, or on Windows, if you use any of our sources, whether you're using Dropbox, Box, iCloud, or whatever, as long as the app is able to get back to that source, then when you close the project, it'll give you the option to send your changes back to it. Okay. So now let's suppose that you want to change the settings around that. Well, over on the top right here, we have our send button. And if you go partway down, you see we have different options around quick sending. One of them is auto send settings. So we tap that. And here you can say whether you want the app to always, never, or ask you whether it should auto send your annotations back to the source. Okay, terrific. So now let's talk a little bit about PDF export. Let's just go to a different document here. Okay, great. And maybe let's pull out another excerpt so I can demo this next piece. Beautiful. So if we tap the send button on the top right, you'll notice we have one of the options is PDF export. If we tap that, you see what you have. You have a couple of choices here. The first one, all the way on the top, is do you want to export your project as a single PDF or as a collection of PDFs? Single PDF, of course, kind of staples all of the PDFs, as well as if you want the workspace, into one large PDF document. Collection exports them as a series of separate individual PDF files. So let's say in this case, maybe we want to export, we'll keep it as a single PDF. Now, the next issue is, do we want to export the workspace? If we do, we can tap options. And you'll notice in options, one of the most interesting is, how do you want the pages to be arranged? Well, we can try to take everything in your workspace and cram it onto one page. We can try to cram it into one column of pages. We can try to spread it over rows and columns, or probably the most useful for most people is simply matching to the workspace background pattern. So let me tell you a little bit about what I mean by that. So the workspace, of course, you'll notice has these nice sort of background patterns. Well, you can choose, in case you don't know, you can choose the background pattern. We can go to configure workspace here, and maybe we'll say choose, we'll add a little border between it, and maybe we'll choose a loose leaf pattern, whatever we need. But you'll notice it ends up creating these nice little squares or rectangles that represent the background. Maybe we'll go and we'll set this to an 8.5 by 11 configuration, A4. Okay, very nice. So now when I go back to the PDF export here, I can say my options, yes, I want to match the pages to the background pattern, which means each of those sort of background pages will correspond to one page of the exported PDF. We have filled in background, should the background be colored or empty? And the last one is link workspace objects to documents. What is that? That's this really cool option where if you export in your PDF of your workspace, an excerpt, for example, if you click it in the exported PDF, it links to the page in the exported PDF where it comes from. So that's a little easier to demonstrate than to describe, and I'll demonstrate that in just a moment. So let's do this. Let's select all of our PDFs. Let's also select the workspace, and let's say export. And now it generates it. And in this case, let's send it over to another app. Let's send it, in this case, to Adobe Acrobat Reader. Okay. And so you'll notice at the beginning, we have our PDF of the workspace. See, even shrunk to A4 proportions and everything. And after that, we have all of the other documents that were part of this project. Now, the thing I was mentioning before about the links is, you remember this third excerpt here? I actually pulled out of one of the documents in this project. So if I tap it, look what it does. It takes me back to the source page, the original source page, where I got that excerpt from. So this is really powerful because it means even if someone doesn't have access to Liquidtext and they're just using this PDF export, some of the linking and interactivity is still actually preserved. Okay, let's go back to the app now. All right, now let's talk about another case of PDF export. Let's say you're exporting to a reference manager rather than to, say, just a single PDF or Adobe Acrobat. So an example of this might be something along the lines of, suppose that instead of starting by bringing your PDFs and your documents into the reference manager and then to Liquidtext, let's say you bring them straight into Liquidtext, right? You know, you're browsing the web, you're going to, you're at Google Scholar or whatever, you pull out a bunch of PDFs, you bring them straight into Liquidtext, you annotate them, mark them up, and then say, okay, now I want to take this collection of documents and send this over to, say, Zotero. How on earth do I do that? Well, for that, we go back to PDF export, but instead of single PDF, we tap collection, see? And so we tap collection. Let's say we don't do the workspace now. We just select all of the PDFs, all of the documents that I've annotated, and we tap export. It'll compile them as a series of separate files. Then I tap reference manager, let's say Zotero. And now if I tap upload, it'll add all of these individually to Zotero along with whatever metadata I've added to them, along with whatever tags I've added to them, and so on. Okay, excellent. Finally, let's talk a little bit about Notes Outline. So Notes Outline is a very different creature. Instead of trying to send out your Liquidtext project in the way it looks in Liquidtext, this takes all of the materials, all of your highlights, all of your excerpts, all of your notes, and linearizes them, combines them together into a nice single linear docx document. And we have a lot of options on the side. You can control whether citations are shown. You can control whether it says the type of object, like do we want to say highlight, 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 or get rid of that. You can control which object, whether you include highlights, margin comments, and from the documents, as well as options from the workspace. Now, one question some people have been asking is, this is great, but are we going to do this for Markdown? And the answer is yes. A lot of folks are really interested in a Markdown version of this, and we're planning to have this out, if not in our mid-February update, then probably in our mid-March update. So we're looking forward to getting that out to you guys soon. So what happens then if I hit export? Well, of course, as always, it brings up the export dialog box. And let's say In this case, I'll send this over to Word just to show you guys what it looks like. And here we have it, a nice linear document. And the beauty of this is now, if Liquidtext isn't the last stop in my work, but let's say is just one point along the way, and I'm ultimately going to need to say compose a final document that I'm going to send off to a client or to my professor or whatnot, this makes it very easy to get your materials out of Liquidtext in a way where you can kind of work with it and shape it and mold it into the final form that you need. Okay, terrific. Let's see. So that's really everything that I wanted to show you guys for the import and export. But before we go to questions, I would like to show you well, just one more thing, a sneak preview of a feature that's going to be coming soon. And I'm always a little fun demonstrating something that isn't available yet. But let me show you what I'm talking about here. So let's say we have an article here, and let's say I've tagged some important parts of it. Like, well, let's say we'll tag this as insightful. Okay, and let's say I make a few different tags, insightful, and maybe we'll tag a third point, insightful. Okay. Now, let's suppose instead of 3, there were maybe hundreds over the course of, various documents, and I wanted to be able to gather these together. Well, of course, I could go to each one and, select it and pull it out, and of course that works. But we realize that in a lot of cases, you want to operate in bulk. So we're adding a new feature to our search system. So, for example, I might search for honey, and I actually don't know. Oh, good. There's a whole bunch of cases. And then I have a new feature in my search box here. I can tap select all, and it selects all 81 instances of the word honey. And then I can, for example, highlight them all yellow, just like that. So it makes it really easy to work with material at a larger scale. But now let's go back to those tags though. Let's suppose I love those things that I tagged with insightful, but I don't want them in the document. I want to work with them. Well, I can go back to find here, go to tag search, select insightful, search for tags, and it finds all the cases of all the instances of things that I tagged as insightful. Well, now it gets really fun. I can do select all and tap auto excerpt, and look at that. It brings them out into my workspace, just like this. And now, of course, I can organize them, highlight them, whatever I need. So the idea is, for a lot of folks, they find their favorite Liquidtext workflow is to go through, highlight and tag things, and then pull them out and start working with them and organizing them. And now we're basically giving you a way to do that automatically, super fast, whichever one or more tags that you want to pull out at a time. So this should be out in our mid-February update in just a few weeks. Okay, with all that, let me pause and take any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Craig. That was very insightful. Okay, so a couple of quick questions from the attendees. One is one of our attendees wanted to quickly see how to remove a document from a project.
Great question. Just tap and hold, or use the right click or control click and tap delete, and it's gone.
Very easy and easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
Another one instead would like to know why in the previous document, in the previous project, there was basically the URL of the web page for the textual excerpt, but not the URL in the image, the linking point.
Yeah, and so someone mentioned this during the morning session as well. So the reason why, and we actually coded that a couple of years ago, so I'm 95% sure I'm giving you the right answer for this, is because we couldn't. When you drag in text from Safari, Apple gives you the metadata of the source URL, but when you drag in an image, apparently they don't. And we simply had no way to find the source of the image, unfortunately. If anyone here knows these APIs or works with Apple, or for Apple and knows that we are actually wrong and there is a way to do it, please let me know. We would be very, very happy to add that in.
Very nice. So let's go ahead and let's take the question of Chris. He'd like to know if we have a PDF merging capabilities to merge two imported documents into one.
No, we do not have the ability to merge PDFs together at this point. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your use case, because there's some things that we have and some things that we're planning to release soon that might actually help you with that.
Very nice, very nice. So please, folks, ask us whatever you want. Craig is here at disposal. So if you want to shoot something more, or Craig, do you want in the meantime to introduce some other interesting points?
One thing I'll mention is if anyone has any, we're interested in questions, but we're also really interested in suggestions. One of the things we've worked on a lot lately is trying to help Liquidtext to better integrate with your socio-technical ecosystem, right? All the different products that you use, your personal knowledge management tools, your reference managers, and have Liquidtext really work smoothly as part of those larger workflows. So if there's something that we don't have and you want it, we'd love to hear your thoughts about it now, but we'd also love to hear your thoughts about it in our forum. After this presentation is over, probably tomorrow morning, we'll be sending you guys a link to join our private Liquidtext forum. And there we have a lot of great conversations going on with users about features they're interested in, about ideas, about things they love, things they'd love to see changed. You guys are very welcome to participate in that. It's not a good place to go for technical support because our support staff does not frequent it, but it's a great place to go to engage with senior management and our design team and sort of brainstorm about features that you guys would like to see added. But one way or another, whether it's our forums or contacting us at support@liquidtext.net, please let us know what you would like to see in the product. Our direction is very heavily dictated by what you guys need.
Absolutely, thank you, Craig. And okay, the people start coming out with with questions. The first one is a very interesting one. So another attendee wants to understand if it's possible to work with Obsidian or the select all option will cover this kind of integration.
I'd need to know more about what you want to do with Obsidian, but let me speak to that a little bit. So a lot of Liquidtext users love using Liquidtext with Obsidian, actually. So our first thoughts about how we want to make that workflow smoother is, one, we want to give you a way to export. As I mentioned, we want to let you export your Liquidtext workspace in Markdown format. The second thing we want to do is we want to give you links to all of your Liquidtext objects, right? So right now, if I select an excerpt, I can copy it. What we're going to be adding in this menu very soon is copying a link to this object. And then you can just drop that link right in Obsidian. And of course, it'll always take you right back to this particular object in Liquidtext if you follow it. Another thing that we're probably going to be doing is in our Markdown export, we're probably going to include links to each of the objects. So you can pull that Markdown into Obsidian and then just click any of the links in the exported result, and it'll take you right back into Liquidtext. Likewise, we're interested very shortly as well in supporting live links within Liquidtext. So if you have a link for something in something in Obsidian, you could just drop that link into Liquidtext, click it, and it'll take you to the relevant place in Obsidian. So that's kind of the way we're envisioning it now. That covers Obsidian. It covers, actually a lot of great personal knowledge management tools. If there's something more you're thinking about, we'd love to hear it now, or particularly on our forums. There's a whole discussion going on there actually about, particularly about Liquidtext and Obsidian.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, let's go ahead. and Ken is asking the following. You pulled out images and text from the browser. Then you added the web page to the project as a document. Will the triangle in the workspace show the link in the document in the project?
Very good question. And no, the answer is no. Right now, that has not come up as a common enough workflow that it makes sense for us to go in and kind of modify those links and sort of figure out that mapping. If this is a workflow that you're running into and you want it to do that, we'd love to hear more. Let us know about your workflow and your needs. This goes for everyone, folks. Whenever you make feature requests, it really helps us a lot if you can tell us about your context, your workflow, your industry, even just to give us as much context around that feature as possible, that feature request as possible, helps us a lot to actually be able to build these things. But yes, please tell us more about your needs in this case, for sure.
Very nice, very nice. All right, let's go ahead. Plato is asking to consider adding the dark mode. Would you like to expand on that?
Thank you. Yeah, we have considered it, and from time to time, folks ask us about that. So far, that just has not had the high enough priority to compete with things like reference managers and OCR and so on. But if this is something you want, please contact us at support@liquidtext.net or mention it on our forums. One way or another, mention it on Twitter. One way or another, let us know it's something you want. We'll keep that in mind and potentially upvote it, and maybe we can get it out there. But definitely let us know.
Very nice. Oh, and this one, Chris, is again with another question that you will love, because he's asking if you can collapse basically the excerpts in the group in the workspace into groups and make the group sort of collapsible.
So kind of like this, but with a button to collapse the whole thing. That's a great question. Right now, the answer is no, but it's on our list. So basically, we've designed the workspace to be very, very flexible, very unstructured. And that's been one of the major benefits of Liquidtext for a lot of users. At the same time, we understand that there's a phase that in your workflow where you kind of need some structure. And so what we're planning is a little bit later this year, we want to do a significant overhaul of the workspace. And we're not going to get rid of the free-form nature that it has. We love that, and we know you guys love that. But we're going to be adding in some more structured things, probably more outlining tools, more collapsible groups, and things of that sort. And that's all the more reason why, if this is something that would be important for you, please tell us a little bit more about your use case and your workflow, just so that when we actually do build this, we'll be sure to build the right thing.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead. Shiv would like to see demonstrated how in the home page you can pick and drop PDFs into folders to organize them.
Sure. So let's go take a look at that. So on the homepage on iPad and Mac, the system is just clunky right now. Like, let's create a folder as a demonstration here. So let's say our new folder, let's say I want to move one of these into the new folder. I can tap edit. So that's what I tap edit on the top of the screen, select the item I'm interested in, hit move to, and select the folder and tap move. So if you say this is a little bit clunky and Byzantine, we completely agree. On Windows, it's nice and modern and just simple drag and drop. We want to add that soon on iPad and Mac. It's on the to-do list. So, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's go back again to sort of color scheme questions. Chris is asking if we can change the color scheme of the navigation sidebar, because he's saying white on gray is not so easy to read. So what are your thoughts here?
let's just go back to that so we can see it. So if you're having problems with this in terms of the contrast isn't enough, first of all, my apologies. Definitely let us know. We've gotten some folks who ask for dark mode, like I said. We haven't gotten a lot of people saying that the contrast level is posing a problem. If you're finding it's not quite enough, please let us know. We'll get that in our suggestion list, and maybe we can do something about it in an update. But yeah, definitely please let us know.
Right. Okay, let's go ahead. One of the kind of normal questions that we always have, Ethan, any plan to support Android?
Ultimately, yes. Ultimately we want to be everywhere, and what we've largely thought at this point is we're probably going to build a web version of Liquidtext and make it available on Android as well as sort of a self-contained packaged Android app. So the answer is yes. Exactly when, I can't give you a date yet, but we're talking about it.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, this one is a hard one.
Oh boy.
Is there any way to export my handwritten annotations on the dock to the workspace? Because until the moment, I can export when I enclose those annotations into shapes.
I'm not sure I understood it. Is the user asking whether they can take well, let's maybe draw this a little bit. So the user is asking if they can take a hand-drawn annotation and move that to the workspace.
Well,
is that how you're
I believe so.
Okay.
Let's see.
So export it to the workspace. There isn't really a way to export it to the workspace. You can just move it to the workspace, right? Like you can just say, okay, I want to select this ink and I want to move it to the workspace, and now it's in the workspace. If you're talking about something more systematic, like just take all of the hand-drawn annotations and bring them to the workspace at once, we do not have a way to do that. But if that's something that would be important to you, by all means, please let us know. Let us know your workflow and your use case.
Yeah, I can suggest to contact our support if needed, or to throw some ideas into our forum, as Craig was mentioning. All right, let's go ahead. Another attendee, if I need to move the original PDF file location on my laptop or on any other cloud storage space, do I need to do something to make sure the highlights get sent back to the original PDF?
That's a great question, and the answer to that is that probably isn't really supported. So just to make sure I'm on the same page and I'm understanding it right, if you, let's say, import a PDF from Dropbox and you annotate it in Liquidtext, and then when you close the project, it sends those annotations back to that original source PDF in Dropbox. Now, let's say you take that PDF in Dropbox and you move it to OneDrive. You get rid of it from Dropbox, move it to OneDrive. And then you go open up in Liquidtext again, add some more annotations and highlights, close the project again, and now you want it to send those annotations to OneDrive rather than Dropbox. There's no real automated way to do that at this point. What you can do, of course, is you can simply go to send PDF and simply send that to the new location. But that's going to be your best bet right now.
Absolutely. Okay, let me throw this idea of Douglas into your mind, because it's an interesting one. So he's suggesting to be able basically to merge two projects, because sometimes he works on a project and then he realizes that something relates to another project. So is currently not able to import a separate project into another project, but maybe you want to expand on how to if in the roadmap maybe how to link to projects or some objects across projects.
I'm sorry, we never talk about any future things here. No. Yes, Cristiano and I are kind of giggling about this a little bit because this is something that we're very excited about. We're going to be adding cross-project linking to Liquidtext in the next, in varying degrees, very soon. So the mid-February update, we expect to already have the ability to create links between different Liquidtext projects. Now, what you're talking about, Douglas, is kind of taking it a step further and saying, can we full-on merge? Can we full-on merge two projects together? And we don't quite have. We don't really support that right now, but we probably will. And one of the reasons merging projects is so not sort of incoherent right now is because we only have one page in the workspace, right? It's one very, very large infinite scrolling canvas. So one of the things that we're planning to add, and you guys can probably imagine this, right, is multiple pages to the workspace. And so once we have that, then importing, mixing, or merging two projects together becomes relatively straightforward, right? At that point, the pages of the original project and the pages of the new project just combine together into one large project. Now, I would also be interested to know if merging is really what you want, or if it's more about the cross-project linking, or if you want like sub-projects. We've been thinking about all of these, and we'd be very, very interested in understanding kind of your workflow and your needs for this.
Very, very insightful. Okay. Okay, folks, we have still a couple more minutes, so I think a couple more questions we can still answer. Maybe one from Shiv. It's between question and suggestion. Can we add the switch between highlighter and eraser using the double tapping of the pencil?
Highlighter and eraser. I don't believe that one is supported. Let's see, double tap, pencil barrel with finger. We have text select, we have eraser and pen, but not eraser and highlight. That is a really, really good suggestion, Shiv. Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. If you could just send us a message, support@liquidtext.net or contact@liquidtext.net, or even just Craig@liquidtext.net, and let me know a little bit more about your use case and your context. That always helps us. But I like that. We may be able to add that one in.
Very nice. Okay, let's go for Linda now. Is there a way to change the default font size and the style of the excerpts and annotations globally in the workspace?
Good question. So on Windows, yes. On iOS and macOS, not yet. We're planning to add that soon, though. So yes, we want to give you a few different things around setting default. So it's setting default font sizes, setting default workspace, background style. These should be coming soon.
Very nice, very nice. All right, I think we nailed it because
right.
So far no more open questions, at least.
All right, we got through all of them. Very nice, yeah. Very nice. Well, let me thank you all so much for coming. We I know it's a lot of different times of day among the folks who are attending here. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day, and we will be sending you again invites to our forum probably tomorrow morning. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to have you participate. For anything else, if you have any other questions or concerns, let me just get up the contact info here. Of course, you can always contact support@liquidtext.net, or you can always contact me directly at Craig@liquidtext.net. Thank you all so much again for coming. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.